The marked Omega. The whispers started before Isla even entered the throne room. She heard them through the gilded doors, sharp, cutting voices that sliced through her carefully constructed armor of indifference. Damaged goods. Scarred Omega. Why would the Alpha King even look at her? Isla's fingers trembled as they traced the raised lines along her left arm, souvenirs from the fire that had stolen her family 3 years ago. The flames had taken everything, her parents, her childhood home, and the smooth skin she'd once taken for granted. "Presenting Isla Thorne of the Western Marches," the herald announced, his voice echoing off marble columns. The doors swung open, and 200 pairs of eyes turned toward her. The autumn court was in full assembly, nobles draped in silk and smugness, their perfectly unblemished skin practically glowing in the afternoon light, streaming through stained glass windows. Isla kept her chin high, even as she felt their gazes crawling over the scars that twisted from her left temple down her neck, disappearing beneath the high collar of her dress. At the far end of the room, seated on a throne of carved obsidian, was Alpha King Theron Blackwood. He was exactly as the rumors described, imposing, with shoulders that seemed to challenge the architecture itself, hair dark as midnight, and eyes like molten gold that could reduce a wolf to submission with a single glance. He watched her approach with an expression she couldn't read. "She's the one?" Lady Celeste's voice carried from the left side of the court, dripping with false sweetness. "I heard the Western Marches were desperate, but I didn't realize they'd send their charity cases to court." Laughter rippled through the assembly like poison spreading through water. Isla's wolf stirred beneath her skin, wanting to snarl, to fight. But she'd learned long ago that surviving meant swallowing your pride until it sat like stone in your belly. She continued walking, each step measured, refusing to give them the satisfaction of seeing her break. "The scars almost reach her mouth," someone murmured. "Can you imagine?" Silence. The single word from King Theron didn't need to be shouted. It cracked through the throne room like thunder, and every voice died instantly. He rose from his throne, and Isla felt the full weight of his alpha presence wash over the court. He descended the dais steps with predatory grace, closing the distance between them. Isla's heart hammered against her ribs. This was it, the moment he'd send her away, reject the treaty marriage that her pack desperately needed to survive the harsh winter ahead. She'd failed before she'd even begun. But King Theron didn't stop. He came to stand directly before her, so close she could smell cedar and storm on his skin. Then, as the entire court held its breath, he did something no one expected. He reached out and traced one finger along the scar on her temple, following its path with infinite gentleness. "Beautiful," he whispered, loud enough for only her to hear, then louder, for the court. "Absolutely beautiful." The King's Gambit. The court's shock hit Isla like a physical force. King Theron's finger lingered on her scarred skin, his touch impossibly gentle for a man who'd reportedly torn through enemy battalions single-handedly. His golden eyes held hers, and Isla saw something flickering there. Not pity, which she would have rejected, but recognition, as if he understood something about her that the glittering court never could. "Your Majesty," Lord Garrett stepped forward from the cluster of advisors, his weathered face creased with concern. "Perhaps we should discuss the treaty terms in private before—" "Before what, Garrett?" Theron didn't look away from Isla. before I make it clear that anyone who insults my chosen queen insults me?" He finally turned to face the assembly, keeping one hand at the small of Isla's back. The casual possessiveness of the gesture sent heat flooding through her body. "Let me be explicit, since subtlety seems wasted on this court. Isla Thorne's scars are evidence of her strength. She survived fire that would have killed weaker wolves. She walked through flames and emerged breathing. That makes her more qualified to stand beside me than any of you." Lady Celeste's face had gone the color of curdled milk. "Your Majesty, I meant no disrespect." "Then you should choose your words with more care." Theron's voice dropped to a growl that made several nobles step back. "The next person who speaks against my intended will find themselves exiled from this court. Am I understood?" A chorus of "Yes, Your Majesty," echoed through the chamber. Isla's mind reeled. This wasn't how treaty marriages worked. The Alpha King was supposed to accept her with cold pragmatism, a political arrangement to secure trade routes and military alliances with the Western Marches. He wasn't supposed to defend her. He certainly wasn't supposed to call her beautiful in front of 200 witnesses who'd just watched her be humiliated. "Come," Theron said, his voice softening as he spoke to her. "You've traveled far. Let me show you to your chambers." He offered his arm, and after a moment's hesitation, Isla took it. They walked through the parting crowd together, and she felt the weight of envious stares following them. When they passed Lady Celeste, Isla couldn't resist a small smile. The noblewoman looked like she'd swallowed glass. The throne room doors closed behind them, muffling the eruption of scandalized conversation. Theron's posture changed immediately, tension bleeding into his shoulders. He released her arm and put several feet of distance between them, and Isla suddenly understood. It had been an act, a performance for the court. That was, Isla searched for words, strategic, necessary. Theron's jaw was tight. The court respects strength. If I'd let them tear you apart on your first day, you'd never gain their respect, or their fear, which is almost as useful. So, you don't actually think my scars are beautiful? The words came out flat, and Isla hated how much disappointment edged into them. Theron stopped walking. He turned to face her, and something dangerous flickered in those golden eyes. "I didn't lie, Isla." "I never lie, but what I think doesn't change what this marriage is, a political necessity, for both of us. The Western Marches need the alliance," Isla acknowledged. "But what do you gain from marrying a scarred Omega with no political connections?" "Leverage." Theron started walking again, his boots clicking against marble floors. "My cousin Darius has been challenging my authority for months. He believes he'd make a better king, and he's gathered supporters. By choosing you, someone unexpected, someone who doesn't come from one of the powerful bloodlines, I show the court that I won't be manipulated by their politics. So I'm a statement. You're a strategy." He stopped before an ornate door guarded by 2 soldiers. "These will be your chambers until the wedding. We'll speak again tomorrow about expectations." Isla nodded, trying to ignore the hollow feeling in her chest. Of course it was all strategy. What had she expected? That an Alpha King would actually want her? But as Theron turned to leave, he paused. "Isla?" "Those people in the throne room, they mock what they fear. Your scars tell them you've survived something they couldn't imagine facing. That terrifies them." He left before she could respond, leaving Isla standing in the hallway with her thoughts and the growing suspicion that Theron Blackwood was far more complicated than he wanted anyone to believe. Inside her chambers, she found a dress laid out on the bed, midnight blue silk that would cover her scars completely. Beside it was a note in bold handwriting. Wear what makes you comfortable, but know that you don't need to hide. T. Isla picked up the note, reading it 3 times before carefully folding it and pressing it between the pages of her journal. Maybe strategy and truth weren't as different as she thought. Beneath the crown, Isla didn't sleep that night. She paced her chambers, 5 rooms that could have swallowed her entire childhood home twice over, trying to make sense of the day's events. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Theron's finger tracing her scar, felt the ghost of his touch that had somehow been both gentle and possessive. Beautiful, he'd called her. Even if it had been strategy, the word had sounded sincere. At dawn, a knock interrupted her thoughts. A young woman entered, carrying a breakfast tray and wearing the practical dress of palace staff. She had kind eyes and dark hair pulled into a braid. "Morning, miss. I'm Maya, assigned to assist you." She set the tray down, then hesitated. "I hope this isn't too forward, but what you said yesterday, rather, what the king said about your scars, it meant something to folks like me." Isla blinked. "What do you mean?" Maya pulled back her sleeve, revealing burn scars along her forearm. "Kitchen accident 2 years ago. Lost my position at a noble house because they said I'd frighten the children. The king gave me work here. He doesn't care about appearances the way others do." Before Isla could respond, Maya curtsied quickly and left, as if she'd already said too much. The revelation sat with Isla as she dressed, choosing a simple green gown that left her scars visible. If Theron didn't care about appearances, she wouldn't hide. She was descending the grand staircase when raised voices echoed from a side corridor. "You've made us a laughingstock." The voice was male, cultured, angry. "Choosing that damaged Omega over Celeste or Eleanor or any suitable match. Careful, Darius." Theron's voice was cold as winter steel. "That damaged Omega is your future queen." Isla froze, pressing herself against the wall. She shouldn't eavesdrop, but something kept her rooted. This isn't about choosing a queen. It's about proving you won't be controlled. The other man, Darius, Theron's cousin, laughed bitterly. "You always were stubborn, Theron. Father coddled you after Aunt Alara died, let you think you could rule by instinct rather than tradition. But the council remembers who has the stronger bloodline, who actually earned their position rather than inheriting it through tragedy." The temperature in the corridor seemed to drop. "You want to discuss tragedy, cousin?" "Let's talk about the hunting accident that killed my mother. The one you were present for but mysteriously survived without a scratch." "You're implying—" "I'm stating facts." Theron's voice had gone dangerously quiet. "You want my throne. You've wanted it since we were children, but you won't get it through political maneuvering or marrying me off to one of your allies. My choice of queen stands." "Then you're a fool." Footsteps approached, and Isla barely had time to dart into an alcove before a tall, handsome man strode past. He had Theron's build, but colder features, eyes like chips of ice. This was Darius, the cousin who wanted a crown. Theron emerged moments later, running a hand through his hair in frustration. He spotted Isla in the alcove, and his expression shifted. Surprise, then resignation. "How much did you hear?" "Enough to understand your cousin has excellent hearing and terrible ambitions." Isla stepped out, meeting his gaze. You think he killed your mother? I don't think. I know. Theron's jaw clenched. But knowing and proving are different things. Darius is careful. He spent 20 years building support, positioning himself as the rightful heir. My mother's death left my father broken. He ruled for 10 more years, but his heart was never in it. When he died, I inherited a kingdom and a council that was already half loyal to Darius. And marrying me disrupts his plans. Exactly. Theron studied her face. If I'd married Celeste, Darius's sister, I'd have tied myself to his bloodline. Any children would have given him a claim to future succession. By choosing you, an outsider with no political debts, I keep the power structure fluid. Isla absorbed this, understanding dawning. You're not just making a statement. You're starting a war. A quiet one. Theron moved closer, and Isla caught that scent of cedar and storms again. Darius won't move openly. He'll undermine me through the council, through court gossip, through 1,000 small cuts designed to make me look weak or unstable. He'll try to turn you into a scandal, proof that I'm unfit to rule. So what do? Survive. His hand lifted, hesitated, then gently touched the scar along her jaw. You're already good at that. The touch lingered longer than necessary. Isla's breath caught as Theron's thumb traced the raised tissue, his eyes searching hers with an intensity that had nothing to do with strategy. The moment stretched, electric and dangerous. Then boots echoed in the corridor, and Theron stepped back, his alpha mask sliding into place. Lord Garrett appeared, looking harried. Your Majesty, the trade delegation from the eastern provinces has arrived early. They're requesting an audience. Theron nodded curtly. Tell them I'll receive them within the hour. He glanced at Isla. Join me. You'll need to learn court protocol if you're to be queen. It wasn't a request. As Isla followed him toward the throne room, she realized she'd just been given her first test, and somewhere in the shadows, Darius would be watching, waiting for her to fail. The price of fire. The Eastern Province delegation brought gifts, spices, silk, and thinly veiled insults. Alpha King Theron, their leader, Lord Cassian, bowed with practiced grace. His eyes slid to Isla, standing beside the throne. And this must be the unconventional choice we've heard so much about. Isla felt the words like a slap, but Theron's expression remained neutral. Isla Thorne, my intended queen. She represents the Western Marches Alliance. Ah, yes, the fire survivor. Cassian's smile didn't reach his eyes. Tell me, Lady Isla, do the Western Marches often send damaged goods as tribute, or are they simply that desperate? The throne room went silent. Isla's nails dug into her palms. Every instinct screamed at her to defend herself, to show these pompous nobles that she was more than her scars. But Theron had warned her. Darius would use any emotional outburst as evidence of her unsuitability. Before she could respond, a new voice cut through the tension. Careful, Cassian. You're speaking about the woman who saved 16 children from that fire. Isla's head snapped toward the speaker, an older woman in the formal robes of the royal archives. Keeper Lyris, according to her insignia. She moved forward with documents in hand. I took the liberty of researching our future queen's history, Lyris continued, her voice carrying authority. 3 years ago, the Thorne estate caught fire during a harvest celebration. Most adults fled immediately. Isla Thorne, then barely 18, went back into the burning building 4 times to rescue trapped children. The last time, the roof collapsed. She was buried in flames for nearly 10 minutes before they pulled her out. The room had gone deathly quiet. Lyris held up a letter bearing an official seal. "This is from Marcus Chen, Alpha of the Western Marches," he writes. "Ela Thorne is the bravest wolf I have ever known. She sacrificed her physical perfection to save our pack's future. Any kingdom would be blessed to have her." Isla's throat tightened. She'd never seen that letter, never known Alpha Marcus had written such words. The memories she'd buried came flooding back. The screams of children, the unbearable heat, the moment she'd realized she wasn't getting out unburned, but refusing to leave them behind. Lord Cassian had gone pale. "I was not aware, clearly." Theron's voice could have frozen fire. "You insulted a decorated hero of her pack. You will apologize. Now." The Eastern Province Lord looked like he'd swallowed poison, but he bowed deeply to Isla. "Lady Thorne, I spoke in ignorance." "Please forgive my disrespect." Isla wanted to refuse, to make him grovel, but she caught Theron's slight nod, a reminder that queenship meant knowing when to show mercy. "Apology accepted, Lord Cassian. Perhaps in the future you'll research before you judge." The delegation left shortly after, their tails between their legs. As the throne room cleared, Isla turned to find Keeper Lyris watching her with knowing eyes. "Thank you," Isla said quietly. "You didn't have to." "Yes, I did." Lyris smiled. "This kingdom has been ruled by politics and bloodlines for too long. It needs someone who understands sacrifice, someone who's proven they'll burn for others." She glanced at Theron. "And it needs a king brave enough to choose that person." She left them alone in the vast throne room. Theron descended from his throne, and for the first time since Isla had arrived, his carefully controlled expression cracked. He looked exhausted. "You saved 16 children," he said softly. 15 made it out. Isla's voice broke on the words. "The last one, a little girl named Emma, died 2 days later. Burns were too severe. I dream about her sometimes. Wonder if I'd moved faster." "Stop." Theron crossed to her in 3 strides. "Isla, you can't save everyone. Believe me, I know. But you saved 15 who would have died. That matters." "Does it?" "Because most days all I see is the one I lost." Theron's hands cupped her face, his thumbs carefully avoiding her scars. "Listen to me. Guilt is a luxury of people who care. Darius wouldn't have gone back into that fire even once. Half this court would have watched it burn rather than risk their precious skin. You're a hero, whether you feel like one or not." Isla looked up at him, seeing past the Alpha King to the man underneath. Someone who carried his own scars, invisible but no less painful. "What did you lose?" she asked. "What haunts you?" For a moment, she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "I was supposed to be on that hunting trip with my mother. I faked illness because I wanted to read instead of tracking deer. If I'd been there, maybe I could have stopped it, saved her. But I was 12 and selfish, and I let her go alone with Darius." "You were a child. So was Emma when she died." His hands fell away. "We both carry impossible guilt, Isla. Maybe that's why I recognized something in you. You're not looking for a perfect life. You're looking for purpose and survival. The honesty in his words unlocked something in Isla's chest. This was real, not strategy. For the first time since arriving, she felt truly seen. "The wedding is in 3 days," Theron said, his voice rough. "After that, you'll be queen. The court will test you constantly. Darius will try to break you, and I'll be fighting my own battles, which means I can't always protect you." "I don't need protection." Isla straightened her shoulders. "I need allies." A genuine smile crossed Theron's face, transforming him from imposing king to something warmer, more dangerous. "Then you'll have them, starting with me." He extended his hand, not as a king to his subject, but as an equal to an equal. Isla took it, feeling calluses that spoke of sword work and hard labor. This was a king who didn't just command, he fought beside his people. "Partners?" she asked. "Partners," Theron agreed. Then, quieter. "And maybe, eventually, something more." The wedding storm. The morning of the wedding, Isla woke to find her chambers vandalized. Someone had shredded the midnight blue gown meant for the ceremony, leaving silk ribbons scattered across her floor like wounded butterflies. Scrawled across her mirror in red paint, "Damaged goods don't deserve crowns." Maya gasped when she entered. "Miss Isla, I'll call the guards." "No." Isla's voice was steady despite the rage burning in her chest. "Fetch Keeper Lyris and tell her I need access to the royal archives. Immediately." 30 minutes later, Isla stood before ancient trunks in the archive's deepest vault. Lyris had understood without explanation, producing keys that unlocked centuries of history. "Queen Alara's belongings," Lyris explained, gesturing to the collection. "Theron's mother. No one's touched these since she died." Isla's hands trembled as she lifted a gown from the trunk. Deep emerald green with gold threading, styled in an older fashion, but breathtaking. It would need alterations, but there was time. "She would have liked you," Lyris said softly. "Ilara didn't care about court politics. She married Theron's father for love, not power. It made her vulnerable." "Is that why Darius killed her?" "That's why he thought he could." Lyris's expression hardened. "But Ilara knew. She left evidence, hidden in these archives. I found it years ago, but without Theron's explicit permission, I can't reveal it. The evidence must come from the king himself." Ila understood. "He needs to be ready to face what it means, to accuse his own cousin of murder. And he needs a queen strong enough to stand beside him when he does." Lyris touched Isla's scarred hand. "Are you that queen?" "I'm going to be." 4 hours later, Isla walked down the aisle wearing Queen Alara's altered gown. The court gasped, some in admiration, others in shock at her audacity. She'd left her scars completely visible, even enhancing them with gold dust that caught the light, transforming damaged skin into something that looked almost like armor. Theron waited at the altar, and Isla saw something fierce and proud flash in his golden eyes when he saw her. Behind him, Darius's face had gone stone cold with fury. The ceremony was traditional, vows spoken, rings exchanged, the ritual bite that would mark her as Theron's mate and queen. But when the officiator called for the kiss, Theron pulled Isla close and whispered, "You look magnificent. And you're wearing my mother's dress. Someone destroyed mine." Isla smiled against his lips. "I figured why hide when I could make a statement. That's my queen." Then he kissed her, deep and claiming, a promise and a declaration that sent heat flooding through Isla's entire body. The court erupted in applause, but Isla barely heard it over the pounding of her own heart. The reception was a blur of congratulations and barely concealed hostility. Lady Celeste, Darius's sister, cornered Isla near the refreshments. "You think you've won?" Celeste hissed, her beautiful face twisted with venom. "You think putting on a dead woman's dress and playing brave makes you worthy? You're still just a scarred Omega who got lucky." "No," Isla replied calmly. "I'm a scarred Omega who saved 15 lives while you were probably choosing which tiara matched your gown, and now I'm your queen. You will address me with respect, Lady Celeste, or you'll find yourself very far from court." Celeste's hand rose. Whether to strike or gesture, Isla would never know. Theron appeared like a shadow, catching his cousin's wrist mid-motion. "Touch my wife," he said softly, dangerously, "and I will have you exiled before dawn, family or not." He released Celeste, who stumbled back, pale and shaking. Around them the court had gone silent, watching. This was the moment. Accept the new queen's authority or challenge it. Lord Garrett stepped forward first, bowing deeply to Isla. "Your Majesty, may your reign be long and prosperous." One by one the court followed. Even Darius bowed, though his eyes promised retribution. That night, in the royal chambers they now shared, Theron helped Isla remove Queen Ilara's gown. His fingers were gentle on the fastenings, careful not to catch on her scars. "You're thinking about her," Isla said quietly. "Your mother. She would have loved you. Your courage, your refusal to hide." Theron's hand traced the scar along Isla's shoulder blade. "I've been afraid to access the evidence Lyris mentioned, afraid of what it means to prove Darius murdered her." "Because it means you could have stopped it if you'd known earlier." "Yes." His voice cracked. 20 years, Isla? I could have had justice 20 years ago." Isla turned to face him, taking his hands in hers. "Or Darius could have killed you too. Theron, you were a child, and now you're a king with a queen who won't let you face this alone. When you're ready to see that evidence, I'll be there." Theron pulled her close, burying his face in her hair. "I don't deserve you. You chose me when no one else would have. I'd say we're even." Isla pulled back, meeting his eyes. "Now kiss me again, husband. And this time, it doesn't have to be for the court." His kiss was different this time, slower, deeper, full of promise and possibility. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Theron smiled against her lips. "I'm falling for you, Isla Thorne. It's terrifying and inconvenient and completely unexpected." "Good," Isla whispered, "because I'm already halfway there with you." The Queen's Fire. The attack came 3 weeks after the wedding. Isla was walking the palace gardens with Maya when assassins struck. 3 of them, faces covered, moving with lethal precision. They'd clearly expected an easy target, one scarred Omega Queen with minimal protection. They hadn't expected Isla to fight like someone who'd survived fire itself. The first assassin lunged with a blade. Isla ducked, grabbed his wrist, and used his momentum to slam him into the garden wall. The second came from behind, but Maya, brave, loyal Maya, threw a garden tool that caught him in the shoulder. The third hesitated, and that hesitation cost him. Isla's wolf surged forward, not a full shift, but enough to give her speed and strength. She took him down in 3 moves, her knee on his chest, her hand on his throat. "Who sent you?" she demanded. The assassin laughed, blood on his teeth. "You think we'll tell you?" "You're already dead," marked Queen. "Just taking longer than—" He choked, convulsing. Poison. He died before Isla could extract more information, and seconds later, the other two did the same. Someone had made sure they couldn't talk. Guards flooded the gardens, Theron at their head. His face went white when he saw the bodies, then darker when he saw Isla covered in blood, none of it hers. "Get her inside," he ordered. "Lock down the palace." "I want every guard questioned, every entrance secured. Now." In their chambers, Theron paced like a caged wolf while the royal physician examined Isla's minor cuts. Maya sat in the corner, shaking but alive. "Darius," Theron snarled. "This has his fingerprints all over it." "Can you prove it?" Isla asked calmly, accepting a cloth to wipe blood from her hands. "Not yet. But I will." He stopped pacing, looking at her with something like awe. "You took down 3 trained assassins." "The fire taught me something." Isla's voice was steady. "When you've survived the worst pain imaginable, you stop being afraid of death. You start being angry at anything that tries to steal your life. I fought for those children, Theron. I'll fight even harder for this kingdom, for us." Theron crossed to her, cupping her face. "I can't lose you. Not when I've just found you. Then stop trying to fight Darius alone." Isla covered his hands with hers. "Take me to the archives. Show me the evidence against him. Let me help you end this." He hesitated, warring with himself. Then, "Tomorrow. Tonight. I need to know you're safe." He dismissed everyone except Isla, triple-checked the locks, and finally collapsed beside her on their bed. She curled into his side, feeling his heart racing against her cheek. "I love you," Theron whispered into the darkness. "I know it's fast. I know it started as strategy. But I love you, Isla. Your strength, your scars, your refusal to break. All of it." Isla's breath caught. She lifted her head, seeing the vulnerability in his eyes. This powerful alpha king, terrified of losing her. "I love you too," she whispered back. "And we're going to survive this. Together." The next morning, Keeper Lyris led them deep into the archives to a locked vault. Inside was a journal, Queen Alara's private writings from her final weeks alive. "Darius grows bolder. He believes I don't see his ambition, but a mother knows when someone threatens her child. I've documented everything, the altered saddles, the accidents that nearly befell Theron, the whispered conversations about succession. If something happens to me, Theron must know. My son must understand what his cousin truly is." The journal detailed years of careful planning, Darius's manipulation of court politics, and finally, damning evidence, a letter from the stable master who'd prepared Alara's horse the day she died. The saddle had been sabotaged. The stable master had been paid to keep quiet, but Alara had intercepted his confession. Theron's hands shook as he read his mother's final entry, written the morning of her death. "I ride today knowing the danger. But I won't let fear rule me. If Darius thinks he can intimidate me into silence, he underestimates a mother's love. This journal is my insurance. And Theron, if you're reading this, know that I loved you fiercely. Rule with courage, my son, and find someone brave enough to stand beside you. Someone who understands that true strength isn't about perfection. It's about surviving the fire and choosing to burn bright anyway." Tears streamed down Theron's face. Isla held him as 20 years of grief and rage poured out. When he finally lifted his head, his expression was transformed. No longer the controlled king, but something fierce and determined. "Call the full court," he ordered Lyris. "Today." "I'm bringing formal charges against Darius for the murder of Queen Alara." The throne room was packed. Darius stood before the court, his face carefully neutral, but Isla saw fear flickering in his eyes. He hadn't expected this. Theron presented the evidence systematically. The journal, the stable master's confession, correspondence between Darius and council members discussing removing obstacles to proper succession. Each piece was damning, building an undeniable case. "You have no proof I acted," Darius protested. "These are circumstantial." "Then explain this." Isla stepped forward, holding a document she'd found that morning, tucked into Alara's journal. A bank record showing payment from your personal accounts to the stable master, dated 3 days before Queen Alara's death. Keeper Lyris verified its authenticity. Darius's composure shattered. "You don't understand. Theron wasn't ready to rule. He was weak, emotional, not fit for the crown. I did what was necessary." "You murdered my mother." Theron's voice could have cut diamond. "You spent 20 years manipulating this court, undermining my rule, and today you tried to kill my queen. Guards, arrest him." As soldiers moved forward, Darius lunged, not at Theron, but at Isla. A hidden blade appeared in his hand, and for a heartbeat, Isla saw her death. Then Theron was there, faster than thought, catching Darius's wrist and twisting until bones snapped. The blade clattered to the floor. "You will never," Theron snarled, "touch her again." Darius screamed as guards dragged him away. Lady Celeste stood frozen, her brother's confession echoing in her ears. She looked at Isla with something like understanding, or maybe just defeat. "You won," Celeste said quietly. "You both did." Later, as sunset painted the throne room gold, Theron and Isla stood together before the vast windows. The court had dispersed. Darius was imprisoned awaiting trial. And for the first time since Ela had arrived, the palace felt peaceful. "Your mother was right," Isla said, leaning into Theron's embrace. "About finding someone brave enough to stand beside you." "She was right about everything." Theron kissed the scar on her temple, the one he'd first touched that day in court. "My fierce, scarred queen. They mocked these marks, but I see them for what they really are, evidence that you're stronger than fire itself." "We both are." Isla turned in his arms. "Your scars are just less visible. But we survived, Theron. We burned and we survived. And now we get to build something beautiful from the ashes." He kissed her then, deep and claiming, a promise of all the tomorrows they'd fight for together. And in that moment, Isla understood the truth that had brought her to this palace, to this king, to this life. Sometimes you have to walk through fire to find your crown. Sometimes the scars you carry become the very thing that makes you royalty, and sometimes the person who sees beauty in your damage is the one worth burning for. "I love you," Theron murmured against her lips. "My queen, my partner, my heart." "I love you too," Isla whispered back. "Now and always." Through fire and beyond. They stood together as darkness fell, two survivors who'd found each other in the flames, and together they would rule with the strength that only fire can forge. The end.